Hey everybody, welcome back to the Primas podcast. I am Cindy. Hey, and that's my prima Jess.
Hey everyone. Hey Prima.
And today we have a special guest joining us, una Latina in Medicina. Please welcome Doctora Karla Gonzalez. Yay!
Thanks for having me.
My hat goes off to you, Karla.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Karla, welcome, is currently a doctor in urgent care and also the medical director of the Wellness Center at Old General Hospital. A lot of LA natives might know this hospital or refer to it as El General or General Hospital, but it's also known as LA County USC Medical Center, and it's in Boyle Heights. So thank you so much, Karla, for the work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, for thinking of me. It's a great honor to be here with you guys. And Cindy, I've known you for so long. It's so nice to do this with you.
Thank you. You have no idea. It means a lot. So real quickly, I wanted to go over, because I remember that when I first met you was at East LA College. You were a tutor and a mentor at the MESA program. And I referred to this program a lot in the past. We had episodes about like higher education when Maria came on. And so this is where I met these amazing women. And I remember you saying, oh, my dream is to go back and work in Boyle Heights at General Hospital. And I was like, you always hear those stories, right? Of people going into engineering, into medicine, into physics, and then they move. And Karla did not move. Karla is still working in Boyle Heights. And I thought that was huge. And I still think it is, because you're literally giving back to the community that you grew up in. And that's a big deal. Like, I don't know a lot of people, who do that. And so real quick, Karla received her training and education from UCLA's David Geffen School of Medicine, where she completed a dual degree in medicine and her master's degree in public health and community health sciences. So again, Karla, thank you so much. You have an impressive background, and we're going to get into it. I wanted to start by saying that, again, so we met at LAC, and you were a huge inspiration, always so graceful. And I remember our trips to the Husky store. You were like my go-to. Yeah. And we always had a story.
Like cafecito and chisme time.
Yeah.
It was like, I didn't know which of the two I needed more at the time. I was like, I don't know if I'm going for the cafecito and the chisme, but then it turned into both.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, but we needed both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're like, Cindy, you want to come? And I was like, me? Yeah. What? Me? Yes, I'll go. And so it was just like super cool that you
that was when cool. Cindy wasn't going to McDonald's remember when you were getting cheeseburgers every day for a little while? Yeah. Maybe it was just a sign that we needed to move away from the cheeseburgers.
I'm so healthy now, Karla. You would be so proud of me. I've done so much better. Like, I stay away from cheeseburgers now.
I've always been proud of you, Cindy. And if you had a cheeseburger every now and then, I'd join you.
Thank you. So let's get started. Oh, real quick, Karla, do you remember one time you were like, do you want to go get chicken McNuggets with me? But I'm on a diet. And I was just like, okay. And I didn't know what diet meant at that time. I just ate whenever. Karla got a 4-piece chicken nuggets. That's it. And she gave me 2. And then she ate 2. And I was like, yay.
I've always believed in sharing. And so I still share to this day. It's actually one of the strategies I use with my patients. I'm like, if you really want something, just share it with somebody. So I'm glad to hear that. Even back then, I was using the sharing mechanism.
You were a great sharer. But I was in my head, I'm like, where's the rest of the food? But no, we struggled. And, when we were at community college, we were tight on a budget. So it's just like, you just take your food when you can.
Yeah. A lot of times there was Hot Pockets involved.
Oh, yeah. Hot Pockets. Yeah. And the Husky store held us down.
The Husky store was it really was like the hub of all the good things at LAC, along with the MESA program.
Yes. So let's get started. First question. So Karla, you studied sociology and you were teaching at Roosevelt High School. And then you said, I'm going to just pursue becoming a doctor. And that's in the middle of the time where I met you, where I was like, wait, because this was for me right after high school. So I'm just like, what? You just decided you're going to be a doctor? And so my question was, go ahead.
I had a quick question before that. You were doing your, at Cal State LA, you had went in as like a sociology major, and then halfway through, you decided to go through like doctor credits?
Oh, it's a little bit of a longer story. Do you want me to answer that question now, Cindy?
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
So yeah, I think it's kind of like a crazy switch, right? It's like it's like I didn't necessarily come to a this conclusion like that very day. Like I was like, oh, today I want to be a doctor. So it actually, I think if I go back, right, it did start like long before, because I think it actually did start at the general hospital. And I've told this story before, but it really comes down to like, that's the hospital that my family used. We didn't really do preventive care, which is what I do now as a family physician. I want everybody to come and see me, before they're sick. We didn't do that. We just ended up in the, ER. And so when I went there, I remember we got like great service. Like it was great care, but we didn't know what the hell happened. So we just like walked in and walked out, and we're like, we think something good happened. We feel better, but we don't know what happened really. And that was because of the language barrier. So I think even back then, I knew that there was something wrong with that, and that we could just do like a better job of taking care of our people. So Cindy, you don't know that. I think you know this, Cindy, but I can say this now, which I couldn't say for a long time. So when I graduated from Roosevelt High School, I actually a UCLA dropout. Did I tell you that, Cindy? Well, so I'm actually a UCLA dropout. Because, and I say dropout because I kind of dropped out of the program because I went in thinking I would do science and math. And then I just was like, maybe I can't do it. And I just didn't believe in myself, right? I really didn't believe in myself. And not that I couldn't do it, because I think I was doing well academically, but I couldn't, like socially, I couldn't get with the program. And so then I dropped out, and that's when I ended up at Azusa Pacific. And I always had an interest in anthropology and sociology and learning about people and learning about how to fix social problems. And that just seemed like a really natural major. And then I was like, then I kind of just did a different path, right? I was like, okay, that was just not, it was like, I had joined like the many, many, many people who say they want to be like a physician, but then life takes them another way. And so I had joined that, and that was fine. And I was actually, and a lot of good came out of that, because I ended up working at Roosevelt to be, I was a teacher there for students with special needs. But then there was always that little like calling, right? Like maybe I shouldn't have done that. And so one day as I was studying for one of the like teacher tests, and I think it was called the MSAT, I was studying with my friend, and I think this is a life lesson to kind of vocalize to the universe what it is that you want, right? And I felt safe. I was comfortable with that person that I was with, and I was like, let me test it out on her. And I was like, I think I want to be a doctor. And then I was kind of like, let me see what she does. And she's like, that's so funny. I want to be a doctor too. And then I was like, but I really want to be a doctor. And she's like, oh man, you're serious. And it was like at that moment where I was like, well, it's out there. I said it. And then I was like, now I have to figure out how I'm going to do it. But I think that's one of the things, right? Like if you want something, just don't be afraid to kind of put it out there in your safe zones.
Awesome. So then you got your undergraduate in sociology?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
My bachelor's is in sociology from Azusa Pacific. Yep. So you
Got
can be a doctor and have like, you don't have to have a degree in one of the STEM fields.
Oh, interesting. All
But
right.
you do have to pass your MCATs.
You do have to take that test. That is a test that you have to take, and they still haven't done away with it, but people still are taking the MCAT. I think it's going away at some point, is what I've heard, but they've been saying that for a long time. It is an awful test. I'll say that.
I remember you studying for it, and I was just like, nobody bother Karla. She's studying for her MCATs. And I didn't even know what it was. I was like, she's going to be a doctor, so move out of the way.
It's a test that's 8
nobody
hours
call her.
Yeah.
that's a test that's like 8 hours long.
That test is it's a whole day. It's a whole day.
Yeah. A few of my coworkers are doing them right now. I have like one coworker who just got accepted into medical school, and then the other ones, like, this is their second year doing it, because they said it's like based off percentile, and I'm just like, what? And they're like, it's not even fairly graded, and they're talking so bad about the MCATs. I'm just like, I can't even imagine taking a test for like 8 hours.
It's just like a dark time in everybody's lives when they have to take a test. It's like I don't know. I mean, part of it is a rite of passage. It is an awful test, but I took it way back. So the MCAT has changed a lot too for all the pre-meds out there. Congratulations to your coworkers, by the way. That's amazing. Um, the MCAT has changed a lot, and the first one that I ever did when I knew you, Cindy, like I had actually taken, it was like paper and pencil, with like you fill in the scantron, and it was like way back then. And then I actually didn't take it, like formally take it, until I guess it was 2007 or 8. I think it was when I finally ended up taking it. Thank you, Cindy, for keeping me on track during that time.
Yes. Yeah, no problem. So you talked about your undergrad and then like coming forward to when you decided to pursue medicine. And so what unique barriers did you face? And it doesn't mean like just during like your studies, but maybe also like when you were studying at UCLA or after, but like what are some unique barriers as a Latina in medicine that you can talk about?
Well, I think for me it was that I feel like I can think back until so maybe when I was like 4, probably it all started, where I think I've always had anxiety. Like I've always suffered from anxiety, and I feel like it's so prevalent in our families that we almost feel like, oh yeah, like doesn't everybody have that? Like um it's so much of a thing that's usually not talked about, but people don't understand that. I think it's something that you have to address, right? So if I think back at my childhood, I grew up with a single mom, and she had many reasons to be anxious. She had very valid reasons to be anxious, and a lot of that comes down to children, right? It's inevitable. It's the way you think, the way you see life, and so I think that I carried that into my higher education days, and it's really those invasive thoughts where you're like, am I going to really pass this test? Am I not? Even though I studied 100 hours for it, and Cindy like didn't let anybody talk to me during that time, it's like you still you still question your ability. And I think that that's what it really was for me, is that I struggled thinking that I could actually succeed. Um, so that was part of it. I think another part of it is just that I think you always want to be able to contribute to your household. And part of me felt like guilty, right? That here I am, I'm still in school, which is like a huge luxury for a lot of us, that we get to continue our education, whereas some people have to go straight to work. And so I always wanted to make sure that I was doing whatever I can, working at Mesa, selling tortas. Cindy, do you remember when you were selling tortas? Whatever we
I
could,
can't
right?
believe you remember.
Yeah, they were good. They were really
Thank
good.
you.
The ham was the best. I don't know if you eat ham anymore. Oh, okay. Well, that was a delicious torta. But like you do what you can, right? And I think that that's another struggle. And then I think once I realized how long this was gonna take, I was like, oh man, like how am I gonna get married? Am I gonna have children? Am I gonna ever buy a house? Because I'm gonna be in school for so long. So those were some of like the barriers, struggles, internal struggles that I would say. And then also not having mentors, right? Like not having mentors, in those early days. I think Mesa exactly is total life changing and game changing for me, because I did meet people like you, like Maria, like it's just a community of people that was really going through the thick of it along with me.
Yeah. And those barriers that you speak of, they're so real, because me and Jess are thinking of going back to school.
Yeah.
And I ask myself those questions all the time, like, am I ever gonna be with someone, and have a family and have, I have my daughter, which I'm super happy about, but it's just me and her. And I'm
Mhm.
always like, am I ever gonna have time to buy a house, or is it gonna be when I'm 50? Which it shouldn't matter, but I think those are so real. When you think about that and you think about, especially as a woman,
Mhm.
because even if I wanted to have more kids, like my biological clock is ticking, and I wouldn't want to do it. I'm more mature now, I understand now, and I want to do it differently, and that takes time. And so I think those are hard questions, right? Like for women in any area, like when am I going to do this? When am I going to do that? And we have those pressures. So,
Right. And I think that there comes a time where you also want to be like that independent woman, right? You want to be that person that doesn't need anybody else. And I have to say that, yes, like I feel like I'm in that place now, but for the longest time, I had to rely on other people. My mom was my rock. I'm still living in her house, and then Chewy, for a long time, he jokes and he says that that he went away on like a trip, and then I moved all my stuff in to his house, and I said, "Oh, we're living together now, by the way," and so but but people that just make it happen for you. So
mhm.
and I'm really grateful, but there does come a time and you have to have that patience, right?
Mhm.
There's a little bit of that, and making sure that it's whatever has to happen is going to happen. But you have to plan for it. You have to have a plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's so true. That's what we're doing this time around, because I think our undergrad, I wasn't prepared for that mentally, like mind, body, and soul. So now for like the next chapter in my life, and that's another reason why we might be ending the podcast, is because we want to focus on other things and make sure like that's our only stressor and everything else is like not on fire in the background.
Yeah, there's always time. Like there's certain things that are always going to be there, right? I was talking to Cindy just before we started recording, and I was talking to her about how like my love and my passion is with primary care and preventive care. And but then I think about, I'm like, there's always going to be a role for that. There's always, if I ever wanted to go back to doing primary care and not working in the urgent care, that's always there. And there's certain things that they're going to be there regardless. It just doesn't mean you have to do everything right now at this
Right.
time. It's about balance.
That's a good
Yeah.
one.
So, tell us what a day in the life of a Latina doctor looks like, but you're not just a doctora, you're also a mom, you're a wife, and you're an amazing daughter. I had the honor to meet your mom, who's an amazing, beautiful. I see where you get your beautiful soul from. And so, can you walk us through that? Because you're saying you're living with her, but really you're commuting because that's your home base, but I know that you move around a lot. So can you just tell us a little bit about what that looks like?
Yes, yes. So we have kind of like an interesting setup here, because I work in Boyle Heights, and I can actually say that I don't think I ever completely moved out of my mother's house. I'm in my mother's house right now, and thank goodness for that. So we have like and luckily I have Chewy, who is super understanding of all the crazy things that I've ever done in my life. And Chewy's my life partner, by the way. Um, so what we do is during the week, Monday through Friday, we stay here in Boyle Heights, and my daughter goes to school here in Boyle Heights. And so we wake up, early in the morning. I get her dressed for school. Then again, thank God, my mom, makes her breakfast for her, feeds her. I jump in the shower. Lately, now that I'm working in urgent care, there are days that I get to take her to school. But for the longest time, I wasn't able to take her to school. I had to be at work at a certain time. So now there's days that actually I can actually drop her off at school. I used to walk to work, and things are a little bit different now. I'm hoping that I can get to back do that again. But I do like a little short drive to work, and then it's interesting once you're in the clinic. There's not like your day, you would think that I'm doing like medicine-y things all day or doctor-y things all day, but most of the time you're sitting there and you're like chatting it up with patients because you need to get the buy-in, right? Like patients are not very trusting of the medical system, and rightfully so. There's like a lot of historical underpinnings, and especially things that have happened at LAC+USC with like forced sterilizations, and so there's a lot of mistrust. So the majority of the time I'm sitting there trying to just get to know them and trying to get their buy-in, and trying and that's not always hard. It just takes some time. I could say that maybe for the first 3 visits, I'm probably just learning what their struggles are, what their challenges are. And then, eventually we start talking about like, okay, so what are we gonna do? We have these medical issues. What is it that we can do? What medications, what lifestyle changes are we gonna make? And our patients come, the ones that at least that I work with, they come with so many social issues that I bet you guys that the work that you guys are doing is like a lot of we're doing that work together, because a lot of our patients are unhoused. A lot of the patients are struggling with depression. Probably like 80-90% of my patients have anxiety and depression. And so I'm doing non-medicine things. I'm really just kind of learning the life struggles. So a lot of that happens, and a lot of it is, you know, doing a lot of things that you wouldn't think that doctors have to do. And then there's a little bit of medicine, so and then so that's like kind of during the day. My days really run late. When I was a medical director, was also kind of like listening to all the concerns and questions that the staff had, as well as complaints that the patients had. That's very stressful. And then right now, I'm also, as a medical director of the Wellness Center, I'm also working within this amazing organization where I get to work with all the community partners, and doing things outside of the clinic that make people have wellness and healthiness. So like neighborhood legal services, working with the community health workers, information about diabetes and the YMCA, a program called Jóvenes for youth that is at risk. So there's just like a lot of community work. And so I'm running to these meetings. I try to, as much as I can, get back to practice. Right now it's at 7 p.m., so I'm able to make some of the practices. And then if I can, like my balance, or I think you're gonna ask me about like how I balance my life, Cindy, but I'm like a true crime, like I'm passionate about true crime. And so like I'll watch like or listen to a true crime podcast. And I think that's like part of my wellness. And then I do it all over again. And so it's just and that's what I do during the week. On the weekends, I would say Friday night, I pick up all my stuff and we go to San Fernando, and we spend the weekend in San Fernando, which is, where Dewey is during the week. He's working from home. And then, spend time with his parents. So it's important to have a partner that understands what you're doing.
Mhm. That's so awesome. I work with like a multidisciplinary team in like Skid Row. So like I'm the case manager, and then we work with like a medical team, and then like a group of clinicians, right? So like therapists. And I love like that's the best of both worlds, because I'm so intrigued with like medicine and going out and doing it. But when it comes to like cleaning the wound, I'm like, oh, I can't look, or I can't look when people do shots, So like that's how I know I can't be in the medical field. But I love to like get that spectrum, and I'm always so curious, like I'm learning so much with just going out with the medical team, like a few days of the week.
Well, and it does take like a village, right?
Mhm.
The patients are complex. The clients that you work with are very complex. It's not like you can say, hey, why don't you get to your appointment at 8 o'clock tomorrow?
Mhm.
Like
It takes a team.
a lot of these clients can't even get it together to wake up in the morning and take a shower, right? So you're expecting a lot, and it takes a team. So it takes people like yourself who are gonna be doing the work, like the day-to-day work. And then it takes the medical team, and it takes the community partners, transportation, right? There's so many things that go into getting the person to where they need to be. So a lot of support, a lot of support. So thank you for doing the work that you do, Jess.
And I love your aspect of like prevention, I don't think I hear that enough in like the medical field, because like what I hear like in modern medicine is like everyone's just so quick to be like, okay, you should be taking this pill, you should be taking that pill. And like I remember reading a book last year which like made me be vegan for like a year, because it was a doctor who had wrote it. I want to say Dr. Garth or something. And it was all about like animal protein. And I was like, it was like my philosophy for the whole like 8-10 months I was being vegan. And all I read in that book was prevention. And he was a medical doctor. And he was like, how am I going to like show my clients, or my patients to live this lifestyle when I'm not even doing it myself? And then he was like, everyone's so quick to go to surgery or taking these pills. And like, I'm in my early 30s and I'm like, I don't want to take pills ever. And I have so many clients who are taking like 8+ pills a day. And everything is just like, oh, it's a cure with a pill, it's a cure with a pill. And I love like your philosophy, like, no, let's talk about prevention before, there's preventative like methods we can take before just giving you this pill.
Yeah, prevention is key. Prevention and early detection is really key, right? So this is where if you are connected to, and it doesn't always have to be a doctor, but I think when you're thinking about wellness and how to stay healthy, thinking about like your mind, right? Like how am I doing emotionally and checking in? Yeah, the foods we eat, I think are really important. And does it like having like a balanced diet and portion sizes and making sure that our kids are doing that, right? Like a lot of things happen to kids, right? But this is like the age where you're teaching them healthy habits, exercise. I would always tell my patients, like, okay, so you need to do 10,000 steps per day. And with how much work how many hours I was putting into work, I was always getting about 3,000 steps per day. And I was like, wow, like that's really not like it, like you said, if I want to like, I'm teaching these things, I have to live that and I have to do that as well. So, I started sharing with patients, like, I know what I'm asking you to do is not easy. I'm really asking you to do things for a condition that may happen 6 or 7 years from now. So the reward it's gonna come late, but it's gonna come. But I would share, I was like, look at, like, this is how many steps I got today. And I would show them on my phone. And I was like, and I would tell them, I'm asking you to do something that's challenging. And so prevention is important, but it's not always easy. But if it becomes part of your lifestyle, then it can be at least easier, and it can help you sleep better, which in turn leads to better mental health, sleep, exercise, spending time with, around good company as well.
I also don't hear much, Karla, that doctors build rapport or take the time, like you were saying, that you get to know the patients, you talk to them to create buy-in. I don't think maybe that's a requirement of doctors. I think that's something you do because you understand that it's going to have lasting effects because you're building trust. And one thing I appreciate about you is that you're very community driven. And if I can read, it's a quote from one of your, I don't know, it was like on your UCLA thing. You'll probably recognize it, but it's about community. So you said, and I'm quoting Dr. Gonzalez, patients cannot begin to improve their diet, medication compliance, and glucose levels when faced with issues of citizenship status, violence, poverty, and low educational attainment, none of which can be addressed adequately in a 15-minute clinic visit. And the times that I've gone to a doctor, or if I've gone with someone else, it's very much, and I understand doctors are busy, but it's like, I don't know who they are. If they give me medication, even dentists, I'm like, I have so many questions afterwards, and I'm Googling it, and I'm trying, and people, doctors like, never Google anything. And I'm like, but I left the visit not really knowing or understanding. And so where do you get that from? You've always been so inclusive and community based, and you're applying it now to your role as a doctor. And I think that's super powerful for our communities.
I think that it's like everything else in life. Like you really have to put the work in the beginning, and it's not easy because yes, our visits, regardless of it's a system, right? We still have to see that patient in 15 or 20 minutes. And what I tell the patients that want to stick through it and stay with me is like, look, I'm gonna push you far. I'm gonna expect a lot, and you're gonna expect a lot from me. In this visit, I'm not gonna talk about like why this hurts and that hurts and this hurts. I may get to that later on, but let's do X, Y, and Z today, and then come back and when next time I'll answer like the 10 other questions that you have. So you have to work within the confines of the system. Unfortunately, I wish I had like hours with patients to be able to spend that time, but I think that that is where the work happens, because that's when I can at some point you do have to use medications. If I don't ever try to give a medication unless I'm at the point where like, yeah, we need something for you, your sugar's so high that diet and exercise is amazing and I want you to keep doing it. But I need to get you like to a better place where you're not going to have a heart attack or a stroke. And then I have to have conversations about insulin, which people are just like, there's so many myths out there. So I can't have those conversations if I haven't taken the time to understand how people are building their framework. And there are days that I don't get to that. There's several patients that I can think of that, oh, it took like a long time, because they would come in and one day their son, like I literally had this, like one patient came in and her pressure was high and her blood sugar was high, but her son had just gotten shot. And I was like, yeah, like I think we need to talk about your son getting shot. And I think that this is gonna like, we're gonna table this other topic, right? So a lot of times it's prioritizing what's gonna happen during that visit. 'Cause sadly, we don't have a lot of time. But it is important, and I think that that's where you build those. That in primary care, I think that's what I love, is that you do build those long lasting relationships where you really know a lot about people, and you can anticipate what their needs are going to be in the near future.
Awesome. I love that. You're right. I have so many doctors, even in my own personal experience, where they're like, okay, what's wrong? What do you feel? All right, have a good day.
Hmm. I know. I know. And it's really the system. Like people are just like, how come you're pushing me out? And I'm like, it's because I have 10 other patients to see. I'm sorry. And my nurses I would always be running late. I'm always running late. I'm so blessed that I work with people who understand the work that we're doing, because they're, like, oh yeah, Dr. Gonzalez is running late again. Um, but we could count on each other for the work that we're doing. So yeah, it's just sometimes you have to take that extra 5 or 10 minutes. And luckily in the system that I work, people like we've been fortunate where if I need to take those extra 10 minutes, then I do it, and what are they going to do? Tell me I can't do that. It's important.
Yeah. And you're running late because you care, essentially. You're like, I think it's important to spend this extra 10 minutes with this person, and I'm going to do it. And another thing that you do a lot, which I think is very beautiful, because you hear this a lot, where like nurses don't get along with doctors, or doctors don't get along with nurses, where you have always said like nurses are your heroes, and you give a lot of praise back. And I think that's very nice, because we have one of my brother who edits for us, his wife is a nurse. And during the whole pandemic and stuff, I was just like, I reached out to you and I just was like, Karla, I just want to say that I'm sending you love. Like, I have no idea what you might be going through. And so I think that's very nice. You're very empathetic, because you understand that. You understand that it's collaboration, and
it's so much collaboration. Yeah, you can't do your work without the team, like the multidisciplinary team, as just mentioned. Like these are the people that are going to make it happen. Like I once I'm done writing the prescription and I send it to the pharmacy, who's going to take the patient to the pharmacy? They don't know how to get there, or who's going to call for the pharmacy. Then we have volunteers and we have our nurses, and yeah, And that's true. It's Nurses Week, by the way. That's another, it's Nurses
Oh,
Week.
really? That's awesome.
Yeah, like it's just, I think that we need to see ourselves and the patients also need to see their team as like, oh, this is like my entire team of people who take care of me. So I don't have to like pour everything onto the doctor, either. I can like use all these other resources. And when you have that, you can take care of more patients. And sometimes I tell them, like, with therapy, right? I was like, you got to remember, I was like, I'm not a therapist. They like telling me, a lot of their woes, but I'm not a therapist. I'm not the expert, but I have somebody who's an expert in this. And so, and that helps, that kind of helps everything stay afloat when you think about like, I'm not working by myself. And I think that's how a lot of healthcare workers got through it. Like, you're not working by yourself, you're working with other people who care just as much and who are going to be able to kind of take a load off, off my back when I've carried too much. So yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned this a little bit, but how do you handle stress? And then if you can talk, and you mentioned this, but your support system and how important that is when you, not just when you're in a field like medicine, although it is an intense field, especially when you're a family person and you want to be with your kids. How do you handle, like in general, how do you handle all of that?
All the things, like
I
all
know,
the
like where
things
do
that
I
have to happen. I do a lot of writing, I do still write a lot of things down and check off boxes. And it's kind of one of those things where I've learned not everything's going to get checked off in one day, but what are the things that do have to get checked off? And I think just a lot, like a lot of other physicians and a lot of other working moms that are out there trying to do all the things, it's you do sometimes have to like reprioritize. And it's okay to reprioritize. You guys are reprioritizing, what you're doing with the podcast. And so sometimes I just have to ask for help. Like, I'm fortunate that I have my mom that's still very healthy. I'm fortunate enough that I have, Chewy, my partner, who understands all the crazy things that I want to do. And then also I think, you have to, I think one of the things that happens to us, the people that are like passionate about things, is that we become yes people, which I think is really good, right? I think we have to become yes people, but I think it's like yes and like, who's gonna help me? So like making sure that when you say yes to something, you really have to be like, okay, well, who's gonna do this for me? We were planning Nurses Week this week, and actually I was fortunate enough to have our social worker help me coordinate. I was like, oh, thank goodness, so she took on part of the work. And so who are you gonna, like, who's gonna be your team, who's gonna be your key players? And a lot of times, Cindy, that's just like what you did, for your sister-in-law, for myself, it's just people checking in and how's it going, is there anything that you need help with? And so I always try to, as much as I can, do the same thing for others. And I guess, be calculated and take note of how many tasks you're taking on and make sure that you don't overcommit. I think that's part of like the whole sanity. Um, Working out is really important. So as of last month, I would say that I'm starting to do more walking. I'm trying to like eat a little bit better as well. Doctors are the worst patients. We don't
You guys are always on the go.
we don't listen to our own advice. It's we don't sleep well, we don't eat well, and we're way too stressed. But and it shows, right? Because physicians have some of the highest like suicide rates. So there's daily reminders, and if you have to listen to those daily reminders as they're coming to you about how fragile and how important life is, and the things that really matter, and the things that you can table for later.
Yeah, that's important. And I'm so happy that you have a great support system, because how would you do it? Like, how could you do so much if you didn't have your mom being so hands-on? It's hard when
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. You can't do it without good people helping you, people who
Yeah.
are become then part of your dream and dream your dream with you and act out your dream with you, you know.
Yeah.
So
I think it's cool
yeah.
too that Chewy is so flexible and just like, do what you got to do. I'm here, you know, and that's hard sometimes in relationships, right? For someone to be that flexible, you know, I think that's huge too. So that's awesome. Thanks to your mom and Chewy for helping you be the person you are today.
Yes, actually, Chewy comes, during the week he stays in San Fernando, and but he does come like a couple times a week. He comes to practice, he comes to do homework with Charlie, and and then he just and I think I run things by him like, hey, I'm thinking of, what do you think of this, or when I told him I think I'm gonna take this job, and he's like, oh, okay, let's hear it, um but yeah, I really, having an understanding mate, I think is so crucial.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So we're almost coming to an end, Karla. One last question. I think this one's really important because, like I mentioned, me and Jess are thinking of going back to school. Any word of advice, especially because you were in the position where you thought you had a career, but then you're like, nope, I'm gonna completely change it up, and you were so fierce about it and so graceful. Any advice for anyone, even if it's pre-med, nursing, or just anyone who wants to go back to school once we thought maybe we had a career?
Yeah, I think putting things out there, like I said, in your safe spaces, and sometimes even in your unsafe spaces, right? That I think it's okay. But putting the words out there, and not necessarily breathing them to life, but just putting them out in the universe, because part of that is you finding people that are going to be interesting. Like I've always said, you're always learning from other people, and that's kind of what I did in the early days when I was like, I want to be a doctor. I had absolutely no idea how I was going to do it. But I started noticing that once I was putting it out there and people knew what I was trying to do, people were on the lookout. They're like, you should meet this person, who can possibly be a mentor. So I would say that if there's anything that you're remotely interested in, talk to somebody who does it, and just, ask, can I just take like 15-20 minutes of your time just so I could know what you do on a regular basis? Because for all you know, maybe you don't want to do that. Like you're like, oh, after you learn about it, you're like, no, maybe that's not for me. But thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it. But just finding those people that can share that with you, and can give you that insight into like their life. There's a lot of people willing to talk about what they do on a daily basis. So I would say do it, talk to people who, whatever it is that you guys are thinking, um, let people know what you're interested in, and see if you can connect with people.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Karla, Doctora Karla Gonzalez. Thanks for letting me call you Karla. I know you said that was okay, but I think it's such a huge honor that I know someone like you and that I have someone like you in my life. I'm so thankful for you, Maria, Marina, who we weren't able to bring on, but still, it was a huge part of me being able to transfer from ELAC and then just see these women do amazing things that are from the hood, they speak Spanish, that came over. You came to meet my grandparents. Like, you guys were just so down to earth. And I thought so highly of you guys. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming onto this podcast and sharing your story.
I want to thank you guys as well. Thank you so much for having me, Cindy. I feel the same way about you. I'm always inspired by everything you've done, and I value your work. And I just know that I wish you guys all the best, because I just know that whatever it is you guys are going to turn to, the next phase in your life, it's gonna be amazing, because you guys are coming from an excellent place. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for listening. Let us know what you thought of this episode. And we are out. Bye.